Welcome to The Beacon, where we shine a light on the businesses, builders, and leaders making our region stronger. On this show, we'll talk with individuals running companies in Buffalo and beyond. You'll hear stories about decisions, projects, and strategic moves they've been part of, the technology investments that paid off, the hires that changed everything, the moments that defined their careers, and the principles that will matter for years to come. The leaders we talk to on this show have walked the walk. They're coming here to show you the steps they took along the way. At Lighthouse, we believe technology and talent are the things that drive every business to success. You can usually trace any great development to people, process, or technology. Joining us at The Beacon is one way you can keep learning and keep growing. The Beacon is a place for sharing stories, and when I thought about what I wanted this show to be, I looked to our core values, namely be a lighthouse. It asks us to create clarity for others, to help them on their way, and to be a place of steady guidance. Few have been guides for our local business community the way that Dan Miner has. That's why I wanted to have him on the show. He's seen what Buffalo's business community has been, and now he's charged with telling the story of what we are today so we can shape a better future ahead. That's one of the main goals of the 43 North Foundation. And where this initiative takes place is on Series B, the Foundation's media platform that's really become a community hub for stories of growth, innovation, and community building. Dan and I talked about how stories create connections, how legacy industries in Buffalo are still at the heart of so many new developments here, and how a platform like Series B can become an engine for decision-making that creates lasting change in our community. Dan's one of Buffalo's preeminent interviewers, and it was no surprise that he did a great job as an interviewee. Hope you enjoy our conversation, and if you want to get more, make sure to subscribe at getthebeacon.com to see all of our newsletter and podcast episodes. Welcome everybody to the show. I'm glad to be here with Dan Miner today from the 43 North Foundation and Series Buffalo. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. And I think a lot of folks who know Dan are going to be watching the show. They might know Dan from Buffalo Business First or through the work with the 43 North Foundation. Thought it'd be interesting to kind of dive in a little bit. You've been in the journalism world for a while and, really become a really great storyteller for this business community. How did that journey start for you?
So I loved reading books, and so I decided to be a lit major at Geneseo.
Nice.
But what I didn't like was going to college classes, and so I wasn't sort of a natural student.
Okay.
And so when you're a lit major at a SUNY college, your most of your journeys head towards more education, becoming a teacher, becoming an attorney. And none of those, by the time I was done with college, none of those pathways looked attractive to me at all. I never wanted to take another class in my life.
Sure.
And I've tried to stay true to that. What was left in the communications field was dabbling my toe in journalism. And at the time, really associated journalism with writing and the Jimmy Breslin, the kind of lyrical way that people describe the world. Thought that would be a cool way to sort of honor my literary interest. So I started to jump into a couple of internships. I interned at a very small but well-known newspaper in San Francisco called the Point Reyes Light. Interned at the Columbia Journalism Review, and then at a newspaper in Erie, Pennsylvania before I got a couple of jobs for local newspapers, both the Tonawanda News, rest in peace, and then the Niagara Gazette. My career kind of unfolded from there. What I found was that the writing was only a small percentage of what made what the craft of journalism actually was and what made it valuable. And what I ended up really falling in love with was the experiential nature of the job. So it is the anti-academic side of the communications world, where, you spend all of your time generating feedback from people, asking them questions, and trying to match what their, what their personal experiences are with the audience groups that represent whatever your media outlet you're working for.
Sure.
And trying to sort of just like provide that translation. Basically, collecting people's stories became a passion of mine almost by accident.
Yeah.
And over the course of 16 years, through urban affairs and beat reporting, all the way through Buffalo Business First, where I was a business journalist, I just always loved the act of listening and always took very seriously the responsibility of how you present people's stories to your audiences.
Yeah, and a great point in there too about the ability to tell those stories and to find those stories is the work that you do when you're out in the community and not behind your desk writing. You're out there finding the stories. I know you're somebody who's in a lot of the rooms where a lot of these conversations are happening, finding people who are doing interesting things in Western New York. And clearly you're doing a lot of that with the 43 North Foundation and Series Buffalo right now. and kind of being the conduit and the storyteller for a lot of what's going on in the startup and tech community. Maybe that's a good jumping off point into congratulations on 3 months of having the platform up as we're recording this today.
Yeah, thank you.
And talk to us a little bit about Series Buffalo and what the thesis is around that platform and what it is and what it's becoming.
Absolutely. So for my journalism career a couple of years ago, I stepped off of that platform and worked for UB for 3 years. And then last June, I was hired by a foundation called the 43 North Foundation to create a new storytelling initiative on behalf of Buffalo's high growth innovation economy. What we were hired to do was to acknowledge what across the country is an emerging paradigm in storytelling as economic development, and to kind of Buffalofy that, to take the best practices, bring them here, and then do something that's even better than what the best practices are. And so our answer to that was to create our own media marketing platform called Series B. I'll describe that metaphor in a second. Basically, it's an omni-channel platform that tells constant stories about the great things that are happening in Buffalo. High growth startups are the beating heart of our narrative, but the aperture is actually much bigger than that. This is really about the great things that are happening in Buffalo right now and the opportunity that represents for the next generation, Joe, for our kids.
Yeah.
And so Series B itself, for those who aren't familiar, when a startup company is raising money, it generally represents their future, their growth. So when a company is at the point where it's raising its Series B round of funding, it usually means they're taking what's working and they're ready to drive national or international growth based on the strong signals they've learned early.
Okay.
So for us, the Series B, the figurative language there is indicating is that Buffalo has accomplished great things over the past 15 years. Through 43 North and a lot of the other resource providers and a lot of the great companies that have come, it's a way different, I hate the word ecosystem, but a way different atmosphere, way different economy than it was in 2012, where we had almost none of that. And so what we did was we really proved that high growth companies can start here, they can scale here, and that they can stay here. And so we want to take those early signals and basically say it's time for the community's Series B. Yep. So it's not just a segment, it's the entirety of the future of Buffalo's economy. And like it's time for our new growth round. So it's Series B.
It's a cool principle too, and this is the thing I always tell people when I look at the work that 43 North does and a lot of what's going on in Seneca One more broadly too, is that it's a really cool combination of folks who have seen, whether it's business models or actual types of businesses, or now like we're talking about this storytelling mechanism, we're bringing ideas from other parts of the country, other parts of the world that have been proven out, and bringing them into Buffalo and combining them with like our grit, our spirit, how Buffalo does things. And that's what I've loved watching about the platform too, that it feels really true to who we are as a city, but it feels bigger than anything that's been done here too. It's a really cool concept.
Thanks. Yeah. Conceptually, there's a little bit like the 43 North Foundation is an institution. Yeah. We're bringing this to the community. And so, but these stories are very kind of grassroots. Like what we're looking for is not to shove our narrative necessarily down people's throats. We are there to be a venue for the great things that are happening. What we did when we studied Buffalo's story relative to the other places, Silicon Slopes, Tech Point, technically, all these other people who are doing storytelling as economic development, Buffalo really didn't have any of that. It had disparate nodes of marketing, people marketing their own products, their own services, their own support entities. And so, so we are just basically, since we know that this works, we're just basically creating the venue for it to work here. One of the reasons that it works, the door is wide open for people who have their own stories to come to us and say, how do I tell it through Series B? So some of our contributors are other entities throughout Buffalo, the Launch New Yorks, the UBs of the world, and more. And by the way, I should say, before we dig deeper into storytelling tactics and stuff like that, the 43 North Foundation is investing across 4 strategic pillars. Storytelling is just one of them based on the research that they had done. That storytelling is a necessary part of other communities that have improved from within. But there's 3 other very important investment pillars that the foundation is enacting. So we're investing in creating new companies that are rooted in Buffalo through our venture studio, Radio Ventures. We're investing in the creation of a world-class talent pool in Buffalo through Tech Buffalo. And we're creating the first structured corporate connectivity or engagement program around high-growth innovation. All these things are designed to be integrated and really work together. So Series B is like a limb. and like
Sure.
it needs all these other parts for the
Yeah.
body to thrive. It's part of a bigger vision for the 43 North Foundation.
That makes a lot of sense. And I look at it, being in the marketing world too, and looking at what that is it feels like a limb. I like that analogy too, but almost like a connective tissue too. Of, like you said, people like Greg Pokerke, like Sydney Sanders from across the ecosystem who are contributing. Lauren Washington at UB, I know I've seen on there as well. But just that being a vehicle for people's stories. And you mentioned one thing in your 3-month retro, looking back at Series Buffalo, the principle of helping people identify with a narrative. Like, clearly you've done a lot of work. The 43 North Foundation's done a lot of work to identify what that narrative is. That notion of helping people connect with it, helping them see themselves in the ecosystem, seeing what other people are up to and saying, hey, that could be me too. That's a really powerful thing. And that feels like a big part of then how you attract talent here. Talent gets connected with Tech Buffalo's doing. Startups potentially come here, connect with what 43 North's doing. Like, this really feels connected to everything that's going on there in Seneca One and more broadly around Buffalo through the 43 North Foundation.
Yeah, thanks. Connective tissue is a good way of describing it. So we're doing all these great things.
Mm-hmm.
And now we want to give people a sense of the movement that they're part of. If you're in Buffalo, you're part of it. Or if you're Buffalo proximate, if you're an expat or a regional college student, or possibly just a national investor who's looking for opportunity, all those constituencies want to be part of something. And we're giving them a sense of what and we're trying to create that movement, or we're trying to explain the movement that's already underfoot in a way that isn't being done right, hadn't been done before, so that they can feel part of what's happening in Buffalo. Because the great thing is that I don't have to manufacture the idea that we've had success, that companies right now are having success, and that Buffalo is going to be a really robust innovation economy in the future. All of those things are objectively true. All we're trying to do is justify all that activity by giving it the appropriate narrative platform.
It's moving well past keep Buffalo a secret. Everybody came to know the billboard, but I think we're past that phase for sure as a business community. I like that. One thing you said in there too, touching on the Buffalo expats and maybe people who were here, went away, maybe might not be aware of what's going on here, and now might look at the stories on Series Buffalo, see what's going on with 43 North and the tech community. Maybe they'll think about coming back here. You mentioned it yourself that you're a Buffalo boomerang too. You went to Geneseo for college and then went away for the start of your career. Was it always kind of the plan for you to come back to Buffalo, or was there something that brought you back here? Or total tangent, but I feel like everyone's always got a good Buffalo boomerang story.
I was working as a City Hall reporter for the Utica Observer Dispatch. It's one of the best journalism jobs you could have because it's a bare knuckle political town and has launched some great careers.
Yeah.
But my wife and I were looking to start a family, and as we were entering our 30s, our perspective was shifting on our experience in Buffalo, and we went from trying to build lives outside of it to really being interested in being part of the community for our lives. And this was all happening at a time when 2010, 2011, when Buffalo was starting to kind of get back on its feet a little bit. And, revitalization efforts were sweeping. Neighborhoods were in Larkinville right now. It's easy to forget that Larkinville wasn't a thing until 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And that story's been replicated throughout Buffalo. So historic revitalization, the resurgence of downtown, and then the emergence of the startup scene. As a journalist who used to work here, I was really attuned to all that. I'm a representation of what happens when you are aware of the fact that Buffalo is about a wonderful community with professional opportunities to go as high as you want. And so the last thing I'll say is that we were looking to start a family, and grandparents save lives.
I sure do.
And so
absolutely.
we went from having we moved back to Buffalo and had our first child, and then had two more 2 years later. So we had 3 kids in 2 years, and being near to our family was a big part of moving here and being part of that support infrastructure, so that we could all kind of be part of the future together.
Yeah, those roots are important. There, shout out to grandparents, the real MVPs.
Indeed.
I do imagine there's a lot of people, either, whether they're working in the business world, if they're, a tech executive, maybe they're kind of, mid to senior career, but also at that stage where they are starting a family, they want to look at Buffalo as a place where they could experience that, but then also grow their career with all the opportunities that are happening here in the tech community with startups, things like that.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a lot of people. Yeah.
It's just amazing when you actually do the objective market research, and
sure.
whether it's like broader kind of quantitative research, or whether you're collecting anecdotes from people who have moved away, these people that we're talking about are target audience here.
Yeah.
And for us, we're involved in this every day. It just seems obvious to us that there's a lot going on in Buffalo.
Sure.
As soon as you step out of that bubble, it's really shocking that people still think that Buffalo is the Bills, chicken wings, and lunch at Chef's, right? And like it is really not well understood, like how much has changed for people who are just going about their lives with their sort of immediate proximity of concern that doesn't involve their hometown. That was just a nice place where they used to be. That has been a challenge. That these people that you assume know what's going on and are still staying away actually aren't aware of it. But it's also, this is why it's such a storytelling is economic development is such a low-hanging fruit as an opportunity, because all we have to do is employ the tactics and the strategies to make them aware of this. And it's really easy to create awareness of what's happening in your hometown and to shift perception, and because there's just so much opportunity there.
Yeah. And maybe there's an interesting example in a story that I remember reading on Series Buffalo too. I think when we look at Buffalo and the reputation of like the chicken wings, the Bills, all that, the reputation in the business community for a lot of people who maybe aren't familiar with what's going on here might still be rooted in a lot of the manufacturing and the blue collar work, and probably a lot of it that went away from Buffalo too. But there is all this amazing work in tech and startups and all these things that are really burgeoning and starting, and the story is starting to get out there. There's, companies that are in lots of different industries, whether it's financial, whether it's healthcare. I think about a company like Utilent that got acquired by Majesco that's in the insurance tech space. And then a lot of folks who were executives there are now building a startup called InsurePay, which was really fun to read that story on Series Buffalo too. But a cool example there of an industry that is really legacy to Buffalo now becoming part of this tech startup innovation economy. It just seemed like a really cool example of how Buffalo could grow in the future with companies that are rooted in what's been, historically impactful economies in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just dumped a lot there, but
no. I mean, because you kind of put your foot in a couple of different kind of interesting conversations that happens in the economic development world here. One is, what should be the area of focus? Should we be focusing on one specific software vertical? Should we be really trying to leverage our excellence in manufacturing to be the advanced manufacturing hub of the future? Should we be leveraging all the exciting CPG food stars from Food Nerd to Top Seeds? I kind of like come in and out of pretending I'm an economist. Sometimes it's easy to just back off and say like,
sure.
You guys talk about that and I'll just write the stories as they come. Alternatively, are all of these things good? Can we do all of this at the same time? And like, I think that's an interesting kind of an interesting discussion in Buffalo, whether we're diverse, or we have beautiful diversity, or whether we're not specialized enough when it comes to like really investing in our economic future. But in terms of InsurePay, this is a good example of what I'm talking about in terms of like unearthing stories that should be more well told. It was a very successful. The guys that ran InsurePay were used to work at Utilent, like you said. It was a very successful software startup in Buffalo from 2010 to about 2021. They raised more than $10 million, institutional venture capital, and then had a huge exit. It wasn't a $1 billion exit, but it was a healthy market multiples exit.
A really healthy
exit. The investors were happy. The executives all have, generational wealth.
Yeah.
The employees did well. It was the example of the economic power of high growth startup companies and how it recirculates through the economy. A couple years later, they're now all doing it again. Mm-hmm. So not only did they create a whole bunch of economic activity with their last company, but that success generated that sort of circular movement where they're coming back through and doing a startup again, raising more money, growing a new team in Buffalo, and really kind of multiplying the effect just based on the fact of their initial success. And that's just happening over in Elmwood. Mm-hmm. Like people should know that we've got like commandos in the insurtech space, guys that are really good at this, guys that have already become wealthy, that are building a new business more or less based in Buffalo in 2026 and like growing really quickly. And like that is just an anecdote. You could throw a rock and hit these stories, and just like they're just not well understood. And I think that bringing them out, really the volume of them is the lesson in Series B. There's so much of this happening. Mm-hmm. And once you just we're the venue for the market research. Like
Sure.
once you just
Yeah.
digest, hey, there's a place where all these things are happening in a true, objective, authentic stories on Series B. It's hard to escape the fact that like there's just a lot of activity here. A lot of activity represents a lot of opportunity, and that's what we want people to think about Buffalo.
A lot of activity and a lot of different activity, to your point too, about the different industries. And, I look at that as like a yes and mentality of like Buffalo can be all these different things, all these different companies. And then when we look at the different types of companies that come in through 43 North every year, thinking about recent winners, obviously there's lots of software companies, but then looking at somebody like Food Nerd, who, Sharon is a, Buffalo homegrown founder, great company with a great mission to, support people and, people and families in early childhood development and providing proper food and things like that. But then startup that comes into 43 North, runs through their cohort year, raises a Series A, opens a massive facility. I think they just launched in a new chain, Sprouts.
Yeah, Sprouts.
So just the momentum seems to be really building there with a consumer products company, which is a really interesting thing.
Yeah. I mean, we have a really exciting collection of consumer products companies. It's particularly in the healthy food space.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So you've got Food Nerd, former 43 North winner, that's now going to be 800 retail stores across the country, and innovative like technology protected platform for their R&D and their manufacturing.
Yeah, something defensible,
Yep.
something unique there. Yeah.
And you've got Top Seeds, which is already grown just massively from not just from its early days, but still year over year, significant growth. Another former 43 North company.
Yeah.
And you've got Hajeka Energy Bars, which is
also
has opening up major retail accounts and is also like a really, interesting sort of tech enabled, like from where I should say, like their protected.
It's a unique product.
It's not technology necessarily, but it's a unique product with a defensible from its manufacturing.
Yeah, like I love going to
R&D
Undergrounds
process.
and just picking up one of those with a coffee and gets me through the day. Yeah.
So I guess my point there is like there's a legitimate movement afoot just in that space. These are companies that are significant sales, raising significant amount of money, and probably have a significant future in terms of liquidity and exits down the line. And they sort of exist in this shadow of food manufacturing in Buffalo that's also sort of like not properly understood. The amount of talent that we have, from the executives to the sales to the actual R&D and food manufacturing, is significant in Buffalo. We have multiple like multinational companies that are headquartered here or that have major factories here, from frozen foods to cheese to lots of other things along the way. And so there's thousands and thousands of people employed at local factories and headquarters. And so like I like just this sort of like linear idea of the fact that like we've always done this well, and now there's a future, and there's 3 female-led CPG companies that are growing quickly that represent the future of our city, to go alongside the Utilin story, where we're a strong like back office insurance town, and that's enabled this cluster of insurance software companies to grow. And like you just keep hitting veins, like in terms of like the activity that's there, and we're just there to kind of shine a light on it.
Yeah, there's so many different veins, and you're going to be able to tap into your community too, and have lots of storytellers there and helping people tell those different stories, which is really neat. And that kind of comes then to the broader goal of business development and business attraction in Buffalo, and how this storytelling platform kind of becomes a centralized place for that. To your point too, like what we were saying earlier, a lot of these stories are kind of either fragmented and they're taking place in different pockets of the community, or maybe they don't get surfaced at all. And then by creating this platform for them, it might help somebody else. Maybe they're a local founder with an idea, or they're off building in the Midwest or the West Coast, and they look at 43 North in Buffalo and say, hey, maybe this is a place I could build. What excites you about Series Buffalo as potentially a platform that can help, drive regional business attraction in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the emotional side of business decision making is undersold. Like the fact
Absolutely.
that like and we want to create opportunity for people to get excited. So that's an emotional like verb
Yep. It's something people can connect with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we think that Series Buffalo is a powerful, tangible force for business decision making that benefits Buffalo because, we're giving people an opportunity to try and be part of something that's already happening. And that includes local people starting businesses, trying to attract local talent here. But it also, when somebody's doing market research and they've got a host of northeastern cities that they want to open an ops hub or a tech hub, like this is an asset that Buffalo didn't have before, and that differentiates Buffalo from almost any other city. And so, who wouldn't, we can put this in the toolkit of other resource providers of Invest Buffalo Niagara or Visit Buffalo Niagara, or anybody who's trying to attract a business. And just as part of the portfolio, where like if you actually want to understand the robustness of Buffalo's innovation economy, just go here. You don't have to go any farther than here and just scroll. And so one of the interesting stories that Nick Kosinski from Odoo tells is that how he had to kind of pound the table for his company to make Buffalo one of it's basically East Coast U.S. headquarters.
Yeah.
And they did all the market research.
500 employees. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of the objective information was on the table. Philly, Buffalo, all these other markets. But what he and Buffalo scored well, or it was competitive with those other places. And so why, if you're scoring well, what is that last 5% to get it in over the finish line or get it into the end zone? And that's how do people feel about it? And what I think and what I hope happens is that as we get more of these companies, it's not uncommon to have companies consider Buffalo for anything from tech to manufacturing. It's not like we're not well known in the site selector community or anything like that.
Sure.
We have an opportunity to really showcase to get people excited and to change the perception of the city. And once you start changing the perception of a region, a lot of really tangible economic development benefits follow. And that's what Series Buffalo's role is.
Yeah. And a lot of that story in terms of the hard facts of what makes Buffalo a place a business might relocate to are already pretty well communicated. You mentioned a couple of groups that have done a great job of that, between the quality of life, the generally affordable housing costs relative to other parts of the country, the talent base and the local colleges and things like that. What becomes then the deciding factor, and I love that you brought up the Odoo story there, is the decision and the emotion and the choice to be like, yeah, this is the place we're going to do it.
Yep.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important thing.
It's like site selection FOMO,
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a mechanism that we're missing here. We can state our case in dry terms, and we can write white papers and create decks and presentations and websites and stuff like that. You want to go somewhere where there's a vibe. It's true. Even the biggest corporations in the world aren't just making black and white decisions. They don't want to miss out on the next big thing, and it's time for the City Series B.
Exactly. Love that. So if people read stories on Series B and they say, yeah, I want to get involved, I want to find my place in Buffalo, get more involved. Where are some of the places people can do that? Where should they be showing up? Whether it's, events in the community, something like maybe Buffalo Startup Week coming up. What are kind of some of the places where people can kind of, learn more beyond the stories and kind of find where their place might be in Buffalo?
Yeah, sure. So, our specific call to action in terms of learning more is not just, is to sign up for, our newsletter and get all these stories in one place. So this is the spot where you would go if you didn't want to miss it. It's a free weekly newsletter. It's in your inboxes, and we'll tell you everything from the hottest new startups in town to describing the events that are happening,
Nice.
On a weekly basis. So other newsletters do that too, but and certainly not trying to say don't sign up to all of our resource providers newsletters. But Series B is so if you want to just keep learning, that's the one call to action I have for Series B specifically. There are also a robust set of free community events in Buffalo, and we like to think of them all as really welcoming sort of front doors or on-ramps into the tech innovation or just like the business scene. So we just had more than 700 people register for Women in Tech, which was administered by Tech Buffalo, the 43 North Foundation's talent arm, and just a great collection of people who were participating in panels and discussions and networking. Upcoming is Buffalo Startup Week, which is not just for people who are startup founders, but for anybody who just wants to be interested in what we're talking about when we say the future of Buffalo is innovation. So whether you run a company that's not tech, or you work at a company that's not tech, or you're from out of town and you want to come back in and see what we're all about, Buffalo Startup Week is a great opportunity to do
Love
that.
that.
Maybe you could show some links in the comments for
Certainly will.
Yeah, but there will be a collection of events at various locations around the city that'll involve really making clear what is happening here, presentations, networking, and whatnot. And then the Series B is sponsoring, and for the 43 North Foundation is sponsoring the keynote address on April 23rd for Buffalo Startup Week, which will be Eric Wood, Bill's legend Eric Wood. We'll talk about he'll talk about his career, his perception of Buffalo, and how he's sort of leveraging all that to do business and to sort of live his life after football. So it'll be a really cool keynote address, and then we're hosting the first ever Buffalo Startup Draft.
There we go. Now we're talking. Nice.
And so we've got Eric Wood there. We figured he should probably draft some local companies onto the Series B team. So companies that have hit certain bench marks will get their name called on that event. So please do show up. We'd love to have everybody from the community. There will be an after party.
That's awesome.
As well. Yeah.
Now I feel like I need like a fantasy football league for Buffalo startups.
We should do it. Why not? The world is our oyster.
There we go.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Anything else we didn't touch on that you feel like is big and important about Series Buffalo that folks should know?
No, I'm just like, the door is wide open. This is not a gated thing. So if you have a company that you think deserves to be written about, if you have a story idea, if you have ideas about the kind of content that would attract you, like, I'm all about feedback, and so please do sign up for the newsletter, or just reach out to me personally, and let's talk.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Appreciate you.